Morning Express, time to have a look at Week in Review. Of course, we want to focus on some of the major stories that made Kenyans talk, not only on social media, but also during the meetings where they meet in different places. And of course, three major stories caught the attention of Kenyans this week. That's drought, where the government had its own stand, county governments had their own stand, but also the media had its own stand because they were filing stories right from the ground, and it showed a picture of what this real situation is like on the ground. Then again, we had this whole issue of justice on trial, and that is matters integrity when it comes to 6 judges at the Supreme Court, other magistrates and other judges. And later on this week, we also saw the 2 billion shillings fake currency being found at the Barclays Bank's Queensway. 2 days later on, fake gold was also found within that same bank. Now, this is some of the stories that have made Kenyans talk on social media. Kenyans talk whenever they meet and asking very pertinent questions. And this morning, that is what we want to have on a week review with Vivian Ta, who's seated on my right. And of course, sitting next to Vivian is Brian Mutie. And of course, let me start by going back to the story that we had a look at, and of course it's the same story that has made the headlines both on the Standard newspaper and the Nation newspaper. Matters integrity at the judiciary. And if you can remember, this year the judiciary has been under attack, in terms of you're not expediting corruption cases, the kind of bail and or bonds you give to corrupt individuals is not enough. It cannot even compensate for the money stolen. And then again, a few months later, the same people who are supposed to be handling corruption cases are the same people whose integrity is in question. Vivian.
So I think the process of holding judges accountable, first of all, it's important for all state officers, not just judges. Let's say CSs, even MPs, like all state officers, it's important to have a process where they can be held accountable in case, there's an issue around their integrity. That said, the judiciary has a very elaborate process that's actually stipulated in the law in regard to holding them accountable. And I think it's important to have something like that so that it's important for it to be very elaborate so that in case of any, politics around it or any witch hunt or any something malicious, then the process can weed them out.
Don't you think this whole saga has actually made Kenyans to lose hope? Because you're going before a judge who has
I really don't think so. I think
because you'll be like, okay, so are you sure about the ruling you're giving about the case that's facing you?
I really don't think so, and that's why, like I said earlier, Article 168 in the Constitution actually provides for a process, an elaborate process of what needs to happen if a judge, has questions or there are issues around the integrity of a judge. The only reason you'd have the article in the Constitution is because clearly it's possible. It's possible for a judge's integrity to come into question, and not just a judge, every other state officer. So this should not come as a surprise.
It shouldn't?
No, it should not.
Okay.
Yes.
It is.
I think to me it is a surprise that the men and women that we have actually bestowed with all the confidence and the hope that they are going to clean the mess that has been bedeviling the whole judicial process are the ones that are being mentioned in these kind of scandalous attacks. To me, it's unfortunate, although this is Africa, and sometimes we say, sometimes you never be surprised of if it's made in Africa. But I want to say that we are not doing that badly as people want to believe that we are doing that badly. Because I want to give Kenyans hope that if we are in a situation where we are able to interrogate the conduct of the Supreme Court, participants or composition, to me we are doing well, because that gives Kenyans that democratic avenue to understand what the dynamics of what is happening around them.
But then, as much as you're saying that, I mean, both of you tend to agree when you're saying this is good, it's happening now. But it was just it was just a matter of time for this to come out.
No.
Because let me give an example. Like the Supreme Court has 7 judges. It's an even number. It's an odd number.
Yes.
And out of the 7, only one doesn't have any allegation leveled against him, and 6 have several allegations leveled against them. And some of the rulings that even we saw recently, the one for the governor's academic credentials being in question, and Kenyans, when the judges gave their ruling, and Kenyans were like, it's no. Kenyans actually, okay, some Kenyans had already made their own verdict, like we know so-and-so is guilty, so-and-so is innocent. So when all this came out, some of the rulings the judges have made, and you're like, it's just a matter of time. Things have to come out.
So first of all, I think it's important to mention that just because you've been mentioned or there's an allegation around your integrity does not mean you're guilty. First of all, you must be allowed to, it must be proven. There must be proof. So go through the due process. Yes, go through the due process, and then let's talk after a ruling has been made around whether is this person guilty or not. Because allegations will be made. Allegations will be made against people every day, not just judges. Whether you're in corporate, whether you're in the private sector, allegations are made, and they are not all. It doesn't mean if an allegation is made, then it's true. The other thing, it's very important not to be swayed by the court of public opinion. Just because Kenyans on Twitter are trending a certain hashtag doesn't mean that's where everyone should go. So just because 6 of the judges have been mentioned in various things and their integrity appears to be in question doesn't mean they are necessarily culpable.
And it's good you've said that, which begs the question then, Mutie, they're innocent until proven guilty.
Yes.
Absolutely.
That is very true. But how come some of these justices at the Supreme Court do not want to appear before the employer JSC for interrogation? Instead, they prefer ESSC and DCI to interrogate them. Yet they're innocent until proven guilty. So what are they fearing?
Absolutely. There's an elaborate mechanism to interrogate the conduct of members of the appellate and any court, any judge of the court, any court jurisdiction in the country. And having said that, I think to me the Constitution is very clear that this is a path that you have to take in the event that you need to be examined or to be relooked in terms of your conduct. So there's no two-way about it. It's just a normal process. If they were not members of that particular bench, then the other avenues of normal investigation would take course. For example, as a civilian like I am or you, if we are found to have committed certain criminal, offenses, the process will just start with the DCI investigation, go to the court, and they just take some plea. But for the members of that bench, the Supreme Court, the judges, and so on, the way, according to the Constitution, is just appear in a properly constituted JSC and answer 1, 2, 3. Once they make the recommendations, they send to the president for action. And there's no two-way about it. So they should be able to understand the law because they are the custodian of the law and they are the interpreters of the law. So if they feel that they should not take that route, then it's unfortunate.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
There's one thing I also wanted to talk about, the conduct of the 6 members of the Supreme Court. Of course, Brenda, you'll understand that, as Vivian has said, that for a conviction to be made, of course, it has to be based on evidence. And in criminal justice, for example, because these are being accused of criminal elements that they have been involved in, bribery, corruption, etc., you will understand that it is always very difficult to pin somebody down because these are people who understand that if they were involved in certain malpractices, say for corruption, they cannot have done just it openly in a way that they can be pinned down by the same courts that they sit or by the same law procedure that they normally participate in. So to me it still boils down on whether this is public opinion issues or it is actually based on hard evidence that has to see somebody facing a judicial process all to the end. And at the end of the day, since that person going to committee or maybe for a jail term, that is a little bit tricky for me.
All right. Now, our viewers, what also made the headlines this week was matters drought. We saw the Deputy President coming out to say it's about 1.5 million Kenyans who are facing starvation, and 850,000 are actually in dire need of food.
Almost a million.
That's almost a million. It's not far from the 1.3, 1.5 million Kenyans who are facing hunger. And the government went ahead to say that no Kenyan has died when it comes to, matters hunger. But then we've had, like West Pokot Governor John Lonyangapuo coming to say only 2 people have died in his county. Our reporters on the ground are saying that, people are dying. And if you see the sort of pictures that we're getting outside there, I mean, it's really heartening to just see your fellow Kenyan live that kind of a life. Which begs the question, Vivian, why is the government so much in denial? Because it takes me back to what I told you, the tweet by Senator Mutula Kilonzo, that stop speaking within your air-conditioned offices, go to the ground, see the real situation, then from there you can talk, because we're losing Kenyans because of hunger. Year in, year out, you're talking about the same thing. Next it will be floods, and then you'll be like, oh, we were not really prepared, but this is the amount that we have released.
I think, first of all, the fact that we are democracy means that as a people, we've bestowed power, or we've given responsibility to our representatives in government to speak on our behalf, to lead on our behalf. So there's a certain expectation that we place on them. So for a key leader in this government to stand up and say, this is not happening, and to even allege that this is fake news, I think it's absolutely preposterous. It's very, 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 very unfortunate.
I think I'm of a different opinion, because from my training, I think whatever you say has to be backed by hard evidence. And we have had, and I do not want to blame the national government for the role that it has played to mitigate the situation to where it is right now. Because we are captured in a way that every time an episode happens, whether negative or positive, we are so fast to throw tantrums onto the government of the day, yet we do not interrogate further or deeply to understand the role that they have already done to ensure the situation is not as bad as it is. I'm not saying that people have not died, or I'm not saying people have died, but what I'm saying is that from where I sit, I know the national government has done tremendous work to in those frontier counties. And I'm talking about the 23 counties that are classified as ASALs. And when you look at the kind of engagements that have been done and the kind of massive infrastructures that have been done in those counties, to me, I think the national government need to take some credit. However, drought being a natural disaster, which is inevitable, sometimes can get you pants down, a situation where you are not prepared so well. But that boils down on the issue of coordination between the national government and the counties. Because as I said before, all CIDPs in those counties I've mentioned have elaborate CIDPs. These are county integrated development plans. And the CIDPs have elaborate mechanisms with proper budgets to mitigate on any issue to do with the drought and the disaster. So
let me just cut you short, Mutie.
Yes.
Are you saying that the person, the government that's supposed to take blame at the end of the day is the county government?
That's what the buck starts with. I mean, the stops with. First, because I will tell you. Let me tell you one thing. Let me give you my reasons. When you, the people on the ground who understand the dynamics and the happenings of the counties in a day-to-day are the county governments. They have structures that have percolated down deep there to the ward levels and even village setups, where they are able to get this information first and before it is even picked by media. So if the ward administrators through the village administrators are able to pick that information, how come that they have not passed this information in timely manner to the governors, who are the chief executives within the counties, to mitigate or to get that instant solution before it gets worse? Because you don't tell me that counties, as much as they say that they get money in piecemeals, you don't tell me that they do not budget proper prior in hand to mitigate on any unforeseeable sort of outcome, eventuality when it comes to matters of drought.
Vivian.
For me, I think it's a shared responsibility, and each of the governments have to take responsibility for their role. National government, for example, is the one. Not all functions regarding food security has been devolved. So you cannot place the absolute blame on the county government. As much as each of them have a role to play, we cannot place blame on either one. Each has to bear their own cross.
Okay.
Like, for example, the national grain reserves is a function of national government, and the grain reserves is set up specifically for things like this. When there's an emergency, they release grains to these affected areas. The fact that we have 23 counties affected, 23 out of 47, as much as Turkana's case is the most devastating right now, it's not the only one. There are several others that are affected, probably that we don't even talk as much about. That's already half of the country.
But then, Dr. Mutie, if you had also, somehow you can blame the county governments, you can say the national government.
Yeah, and let me just finish on the national government. The other thing maybe many people don't know is the National Intelligence Service. Part of their role is in anticipating issues like drought. Why? Because drought can destabilize and cause a lot of problems in terms of maybe stoking ethnic tension, especially in the arid and semi-arid area where there are many pastoralists. And because of that, it's something that the NIS should be able to have anticipated and maybe
Let me say something.
So you're blaming the national government.
So I'm saying, I'm not blaming the national government on its own. I'm saying they both bear responsibility.
Okay. But which it takes me back to the Deputy President's statement, Dr. Mutie, when he said that these county governments need to have, they've been given funds, and there is also a provision within the county, the Counties Act that says they need to have a fund for disaster management.
That fund is there, and I want to say that the NDMA itself, working in those 23 counties, has an elaborate early warning mechanism or early warning system. I'm not speaking on behalf of NDMA, but from where I sit, I know their scientifically proven early warning system is able to detect drought episodes even before their onset. And they have their well set up system which is able to detect issues to do with the VCI, the vegetative index cover index, and so on and so on. And they are able to say that these are some of the conditions that come before drought is being declared. And they say that for people to die, and I'm picking this from the CEO of the National Drought Management when he talked about, when he appeared before the press, and gave an elaborate ways that they use before, and they say that before people die, animals have to start first die. And there's a way they look at the vegetation cover and the patterns, weather patterns, and so on and so on. And before people die, the animals must,
to prove that there's drought.
No, not necessarily to prove, as an indication or as an indicator that things are getting out of hand. But when you see that animals are still withstanding the situation as it is, then it means it has not come to a situation where people can die out of hunger. Well, that's scientifically proven. Although he elaborated about the situation where people could die out of other issues, which can be accompanied by issues of food shortage or hunger pangs, which sometimes cannot be squarely blamed on drought or laxity of the national government.
All right.
So to me, I think it's a mixture of, a responsibility from different quarters who ought to have done this thing together. But somehow, because of the coordination aspect and the blame game, I think that's where we are finding ourselves. But to me, as far as I'm concerned, the early warning mechanism has to be picked by the county government to relate to the national government to trigger response. Because when she talk about the grain reserves, how does the national government understand there's drought if it's not being told? As much as we are talking about the NIS.
Vivian is saying they coordinate.
Yeah, I mean, they should coordinate.
The grains have to be distributed from an point of
information that they get from the ground.
From the counties, from the ground.
Let's go to now the saddest part of this whole discussion about, drought in the country. And if you check your Twitter right now, one of the trending topics here in Nairobi is Red Cross to Mechoka.
Yeah.
And the second trending one is Kenyans for Kenya. So there are people who are supporting, like, let's contribute money, let's give money to the humanitarian organizations that are helping our fellow Kenyans. Then there are Kenyans who are saying Red Cross to Mechoka. Yeah, in, here out, you'll come back to us, oh, we need. But you're coming to us and saying you need money to help, or you need food, or you need clothing to help our fellow Kenyans who are dying, who are in dire need of, various stuff like food, like clothing, shelter, and all that. And you cannot even account for the money that you're given the previous years. You're coming to us for money, yet the government says there is enough food. Hence, Red Cross to Mechoka, hence Kenyans for Kenya.
I'd actually like to see, all due respect, to see what this National Drought Management Authority has done. Tangible actions that they have done to mitigate drought in these counties. I'd like not just talk. I'd actually like to see tangible actions that they have taken to make sure that issues of famine, issues of drought are managed, and not in a reactive manner, but in a proactive manner. Going to Kenyans for Kenyans. I think that campaign was in 2011.
It was in 2011?
It was in 2011, and they raised about $1 billion.
And last year, again, Kenyans contributed money. That was 2018. 2017,
yes.
Kenyans contributed money.
Yes. And the last time, during the 2011, when the $1 billion was raised, I think Red Cross gave a statement saying they were going to use about 300 million from the fund to set up pilot projects in Turkana, in, I think, East Pokot and Moyale counties, to try and have sustainability in terms of food security. My question is, what was done? Like, can we possibly see a report or something
tangible from the ground
from these projects that they set up? Because they were supposed to be pilot projects that inform how maybe we will tackle this drought thing in the future, so that it's a little bit more sustainable and we don't have to keep collecting money.
So do you support the trending hashtag of Red Cross to Mechoka?
No, I believe when it comes to giving in support of a Kenyan or any other cause, it should be a personal conviction.
Okay, Dr.
So
Mutie,
if you're in agreement and you feel moved to help, please give.
If you're not moved to
help,
if
you're not, because it should be a free will kind of thing.
Okay,
then you're not compelled to.
Okay,
I
Dr.
think we are becoming too hard on a Red Cross, because first of all, this is their work, this is their role that they do. And it's not just on times of drought that they come out to seek for or solicit for support, but also during disasters and emergencies. So to me, they are within their path when it comes to requesting for some support from Kenyans. When you listen to what they're asking for 824 million according to the dailies. And this is to save lives. They are not saying this is what we need this money to do other business. They are saying we need this money to save lives.
Yeah.
They are saying that people are in dire need, and they have read the script, and they are seeing there's need for this money, for this kind of intervention to happen, so that Kenyans are saved from die. So what would Kenyans expect if not Red Cross are asking for these funds? What else would they expect? Just a second. Of course, they are coming from history, where they are saying that you have been asking for this before. You have not been disclosing what you've been doing with the monies. Of course, they have been disclosing all this through their books of accounts. Dr.
Mutie, let me just cut you short before Vivian responds to your statement. If you read some of the sentiments by Kenyans on social media, the ones who are actually making this Red Cross to Mechoka trend, they're saying that you're asking for money, yet this week, the government, that is Devolution Cabinet Secretary, Deputy President William Ruto, came out to say there is enough food. And food is very cheap, it's affordable. No Kenyan is going to die. Every Kenyan will have food on the table. So why are you coming to ask us to give money, yet the government of the day that's supposed to look at the interest of Kenyans has come out to say there is enough food for everyone? It's like your neighbor coming to you to borrow food, yet the child of that neighbor told you, in our house, we have enough food, tuko na kutosha. Then the owner of the house comes to tell you, Dr. Mutie, see, you help with a plate of
Let me say this. Maybe people don't understand the works of the government. The government, first of all, has to give hope to its people. And one of assuring that that hope is there, the government cannot depict itself as a weakling.
So we pay taxes to get hope.
Let me clear this. The government is saying that from where it sits, and I'm not talking I'm not its mouthpiece, but it's my own interpretation. What they are saying, there's food. The situation has not come to a situation where Kenya can say that we can import food to distribute to the areas which are drought prone or hit by the drought. They are saying that we have areas which have surplus. For example, when you go to Kitales, to areas like Kitale, Trans Nzoia, and some of the Rift Valley, there's a lot of food. What they are saying that because of the coordination gaps that could have been there, because the information was not relayed in good, timely manner, perhaps there were some gaps in terms of reaching out these food surpluses to the people who are hit by drought. So what they are saying is that give us time so that we can put our house in order. Because every government has its own ways of working. What happens in such a situation is that they are now going to trigger a coordination mechanism so that they can reach out to those who are hit. But again, on the issue of Red Cross, before I sign out on this one.
Yeah, because you're winding up because of time.
Red Cross is of course, when they say send us this contribution, there are other logistical issues that need to be covered. The government perhaps might have some ways of reaching out, but it might not 100% reach out. So there's that need for complementarity
from humanitarian
aspects.
Vivian, your last sentiments in like a minute.
I feel like Dr. Mti is contradicting himself. In one breath he says, he says the government is right in saying there's no deaths attributed to drought. In the next breath he's saying, hey, support Red Cross and, you know, contribute towards logistics and
to save lives.
And, let me finish because
yes, but according to the Red Cross statement, the lives are being lost because of drought, which you're saying is not happening. So
I'm not saying it's not happening.
And the other thing I want to say is
it's not happening.
we don't pay taxes to be fed hope. We pay taxes to get service delivery.
All right.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Brand Mutie and Vivian. As much as we cannot agree on this, on the way forward, where we are, do we have enough resources or not? Do we have money? Do we have food? The government says we have enough to feed Kenyans. On the other side, Kenyans are coming out also to attack humanitarian organizations.
Just allow me. Last comment.
We have run out of time, Vivian.
Last comment.
Okay.
The Constitution in Article 43 actually guarantees every Kenyan will not die of hunger. You will be free. It's in the Constitution.
It's a right.
Yes. It's a progressive Constitution.
Okay. It's a progressive Constitution.
It's there nonetheless.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming. I need to bring this conversation to an end. Thank you so much for